Hi, welcome back to the Distressed Princess. Today is a collaboration day and I'm partnering with Emily over at Farm Charm Chic. I'm so happy to introduce you to Emily. If you haven't already seen her on YouTube, she is a great up-and-comer because just look at these DIYs. The link for her video and the link for her channel will be in my description box down below. We thought it would be fun to show you some summer farmhouse DIYs today. So I bought a table runner from Home Goods and it was longer than I needed it to be, and it had this little defect on the back side of it, and so I cut it off so that it would fit the table that I wanted it to go on, and I had this extra. So for $15, I got a table runner for my coffee table. Am I the only one that puts a table runner on a coffee table? But I got a table runner for my coffee table, and I also got this nice material to DIY with. So the first thing that I decided to do was rip the seams so that I actually will have two pieces of material instead of this one piece. Now, of course, you won't need to go out and buy this table runner to make this DIY. This could be done with a pretty placemat or any pretty material that you would like to use. I cut the piece in two using the hem that's already there. So the left side of this will be the piece that I'm working with. Then I flipped it over and removed any strings that were hanging out from where I ripped the seams apart. And this is a product that I like to use. It's called Liquid Stitch. It's from Walmart and it's inexpensive, and it does a really good job of making hems when you don't want to use a sewing machine, or if you're like me and you don't have a sewing machine and you don't want to sew by hand. This stuff is a miracle. I found this free printable online, which I will link in my description box, and I want this design to be transferred onto my material. And I'm going to use a technique printing on tissue paper, which I got from the Schwowin's Nest, and I will link that video in my description box below. And I'm going to use another method. You'll have to watch and see how the transfer actually goes. But to get this image onto the tissue paper, use a regular piece of copy paper or print paper, whatever you use in your printer, and tape the tissue paper to the copy paper. So to be honest, I printed this out on regular paper first because I didn't even think to use tissue paper the first time I printed. But I'm glad that I had it as a template to go by so that I knew where to tape my tissue paper onto the paper. You know what I'm saying? Like when it goes through the printer, I know exactly where I need my tissue paper to go. So the printing went very well, and here it is. Isn't that bright and vibrant? I really love how this looks on this tissue paper. Man, Sandra came up with a genius idea, printing designs on tissue paper. So then I very carefully have to remove it from the copy paper. So here's the second new method I'm using today. I'm using this saran wrap to transfer this image to the material. Oh, that's right. This is an idea that I saw on TikTok, and what you do is cut a piece of cling wrap the size of your image, and I was trying to really not have any hanging out around the edges of my tissue paper image because I was afraid it might not do right with the material. But in hindsight, I'll give you this tip. I think it's okay to let your saran wrap be a little bigger than your image, and I'll show you why in just a minute. Now I'm going to protect everything with parchment paper because we're going to use an iron to get this transferred onto the material. So cover the whole image with parchment paper and then have your iron, which will be set on its highest heat setting that you can for the material. So this is a cotton piece of material, so it was set kind of high. And then I just go over the whole thing for, I don't know, about 20 seconds total. And then lift to see how we did. And the result was this. See how it's kind of curling up around the corners and the edges? And that's because I didn't have saran wrap right up to the edges of that. It must have moved on me. So that's why I recommend having a piece of saran wrap a little bigger than your image. Now I was able to fix this easily. Well, it was kind of a little bit of a hassle, but easy enough, I suppose. If you have this happen, then get another littler piece of saran wrap and put under the piece that's curling up or peeling up and iron it again. And this time it is completely glued down, if you want to call it that. So I had a few places where this had happened, so it took me a little bit of time to repair where it was coming up. And what happens to the cling wrap that's hanging out around the edge? It peels right off the material so that it doesn't even show. So make your cling wrap bigger than your design. Now for the Chippy Paint hello sign. And this hello sign I got from the Dollar Tree. And the Chippy Paint idea is another TikTok idea. Do you see a trend here? I've been going down the TikTok rabbit hole, but I'm telling you, they have all kinds of awesome ideas. The first thing I did to this hello sign was use my Waverly antiquing wax to give it a nice stain, using the baby wipe method at first, but then I had to switch to a brush because the baby wipe just could not get in all the little loop-de-loops of the word. Now the Chippy Paint technique is done in layers, and the first color I'm using is Crystal from Waverly that I got at Walmart. And the way that this effect is achieved is by rubbing a candle using the wax on your piece where you do not want the paint to stick. As a side note, I wish that I would have used more wax in more places. I kind of concentrated on the edges like I'm distressing, like how my thought process is around the edges of things getting distressed. But I think it would have been a lot better if I would have put that wax pretty much all over. Then paint your first color of paint onto your project. And then let it dry, but of course I used my hair dryer. Then you use packing tape, clear packing tape, to remove the paint that was where the candle was. And so I'm going to show you this first with just using one color. So I've just got the blue down right now with no top coat. And when I rip this off, watch what happens. Voila, Chippy Paint. So I did this repeatedly with the same piece of packing tape until it wasn't tacky anymore. And then I would get a new piece, and I did this all over my hello. So you could stop right here if you like that look, but I wanted to add another layer of Chippy Paint, and so I went over my whole word again with the candle, and I painted on a really thick layer of white chalk paint, and I was thinking thicker might make it look like it's been painted more times, like it was older and chippier, and I really do like how that worked out. And then putting the packing tape back down over that white paint. And also you should try to burnish that tape down into the paint as much as you can. So it's like the harder that you scrape this down into the paint, the more paint is going to come off with the tape. So yeah, that makes sense. But isn't this absolutely so cute? Chippy paint instead of just painting on distressing, which I like that too. But this is such a new technique to me and I am loving it. I wish you could see in better detail the blue showing through, but because of the lighting, you can't tell so much the difference between the blue and the white. But imagine you could do all kinds of colors and have all kinds of different colors showing through that white paint, making it look like it's been painted different colors throughout the years and it's just worn apart. Then, ironically enough, the places where I normally distress with a paintbrush along the edges, they were not distressed enough for me, so I went back with my Dollar Tree scraper and scraped some of the paint off along the edges. And then she was perfect. Isn't she just cute as pie? And here comes another TikTok crafting technique. You won't even ever need to go over there because I'm obviously going to show you all of them anyway. So I'm using a 6x8 canvas that I got at the Dollar Tree for this one. And I'm going to print off another free printable, which I will link in my description box below. But before you print it, you have to mirror your image. That's very important. If you're very observant, you can see that I jumped ahead and went ahead and put the decoupage on my canvas before I even had my print cut out. That's how excited I was to try this new technique. But anyway, print your image, make sure it's mirrored, and cut it down to size. Then use a generous amount of decoupage glue or Mod Podge and paint it all over your canvas. Then, with the printed side down, very carefully put your print onto the canvas and smooth out all the air bubbles you can. The most air bubbles that you can get out, the better your result will be. And then let it set overnight before you move on to the next step. So the next step in this process is to use water and a sponge to wet your canvas. And so you're going to wet that paper. And the more you wet that paper, the more it's going to kind of ball up and want to rub off. Okay, so here is a confession. I think I actually like this better with just the paper being wetted. I don't know if it would dry, I guess, maybe, and lose that brightness, but I just loved the bright color that turned when I got this paper wet. Anyhow, back to the actual technique. You wet your paper and then you gently rub on top, and the paper, as you can imagine, starts to ball up and peel off. And the more you do this, the lighter in color the print gets. So you wind up with more of a watercolor looking print, which is fabulous. I love that. But I'm wondering if you were not to rub all over this paper and just put another coat of Mod Podge on while it's wet, do you think it would hold that vibrancy? Maybe I'm going to test this theory. So you're supposed to rub off every little speck of paper that's on the canvas, which in places did take away part of my wording. It did take away part of my flowers, which makes it look awfully vintage, and I do love that. So what we have here is a watercolor print, and I'm just gonna go with it. Have you been lucky enough to find one of these creamers at the Dollar Tree? They have this blue color and a white color too. I bought them both. They may have a pink one, I think. Maybe some people have shown me. Anyway, I also picked up this friendship bracelet making kit because I loved the color of these little floss. I think they're called flosses. And I'm going to make a tassel for this little creamer. I picked the more coral color in the bench, although I really thought that the magenta would be pretty too. It was kind of a toss-up. But anyhow, the way that this is already all looped up, I thought, hey, half the battle is already won. This tassel's already half made. So all I really did was pull out a long piece that I could use to tie a hanger and wrap around the top. And then I thought, well, I could make this tassel a lot fuller if I would double it up and fold it in half. And so I'm using my longer piece of thread to tie in the middle. And this is also going to be my hanger. And then I took some more of that really long piece that I cut at first and I wrapped around the top and made a knot. And then I cut all the loops, which makes the tassel. And cut off any straggly pieces. And then I tied my little tassel to the handle of my creamer. Now for the flowers, they're all Dollar Tree. I chose a brighter pink, a lighter pink, and another brighter pink that had some plasticky nice greenery on it and some faux ferns. I didn't use all of these flowers because that would have been too much for this little creamer. So I just cut off a piece or two and tossed them together into this creamer and it turned out adorable. And here's another look at our summer farmhouse decorations all together. Remember, Emily's link is in my description box below, and when you go over to visit her, tell her that the Distressed Princess sent ya. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time. Bye.